This is a breaking news alert. The MeidasTouch network can officially call it. Abdul El-Sayed will go on to win the Michigan Senate primary for the Democratic Party. Let me repeat this again. The MeidasTouch network can officially call Abdul El-Sayed will go on to win the Michigan Senate primary, beating his opponent, Haley Stevens, who was given lots and lots of money, over $60 million by outside groups. Abdul El-Sayed will go on to victory. NBC is calling it as well. Moments ago, Mallory McMorrow, who was one of the opponents in the Democratic primary, she dropped out early, leaving it as a two-person race between Abdul El-Sayed and Haley Stevens. Well, McMorrow just came out with a very strong endorsement of Abdul El-Sayed after we can officially make the call that he will go on to win the Michigan Senate primary, and he will go up against the MAGA extremist Mike Rogers. Mallory McMorrow just posted the following message. McMorrow endorses Abdul El-Sayed. Congratulations, Abdul El-Sayed, on winning the Michigan Democratic primary to be our nominee for the United States Senate. Abdul has my full endorsement and support. This was a brutal primary. Believe me, I know. She was in it. And Trump and Mike Rogers are counting on us to stay divided. Let's prove them wrong by beating Mike Rogers and taking our country back. This was the moment that NBC made the call as well. Let's play it.
This is an NBC News special report. I'm Steve Kornacki. American voters in 5 states hit the polls on Tuesday, and I've got some major results to share with you, starting in the state of Michigan, where Abdul El-Sayed has won the Democratic primary for the United States Senate. He defeats Congresswoman Haley Stevens. This was a very close race here. You can see there are still a scattering of votes to be counted, but El-Sayed currently leading Stevens by 2 points out.
Teddy Scheifler posts. Here's the final New York Times numbers on Haley Stevens versus Abdul El-Sayed. 6 outside groups spent $62 million for Stevens, giving her a 9-to-1 spending advantage over Abdul. Half of that Stevens spend, $32 million, came from AIPAC's Super PAC. AIPAC Super PAC spent more than any single group has in a federal Democratic primary this cycle. Now, MS Now and others spoke with voters during the day, and voters were talking about how they don't want their money going to fund never-ending wars. They don't want their money funding Netanyahu's genocidal regime. We heard that voter after voter, and obviously voters were also focused on affordability, affordability, affordability. They don't want data centers in their backyard. They don't want their health care being ripped away, and they don't want an authoritarian regime that covers up child sex trafficking rings. And they don't want ICE and Border Patrol Gestapo roaming the streets and killing people in this country. Let me share with you right now, as the MS Now reporter spoke with a white female Michigan voter who considers herself to be a very moderate voter. And here's why she said she voted for Abdul El-Sayed. Here, play this clip.
I just wouldn't want a single of our family's tax-paying dollars to go towards something like that. It's like giving money to violence.
So would you support a Senate candidate, in this case Haley Stevens, who's more of a moderate like you tend to like, but would that be enough?
That would definitely turn me off as 100%. I couldn't. I would vote for a communist first.
More voters speaking to MS Now right here. Let's play this clip.
Are you the last one of the day?
Yes.
I think we should talk quietly still because we're in the voting place and we're not really supposed to talk politics, but how did it go?
It went pretty good, I think.
How were you the last one and why?
Let me tell you, I started to vote earlier this morning, but I went to the wrong place.
And so you finally made it at the very last second.
At the very last
It's a
second.
huge contest. Abdul El-Sayed versus Haley Stevens. Who got your vote in here?
Abdul.
Why?
That just shows Abdul. I think he...
Are you ready for a change? Is that what this is about?
Definitely.
One of the things I want to ask you about is, and tell me your name again. I'm so sorry.
Donna.
Donna. Would you go for Haley Stevens in the general election if it wasn't Abdul El-Sayed? I've heard from people time and again that in the general, they're ready for the other candidate if their preferred candidate tonight doesn't win.
Yes.
And that's because why?
One again, just ready for a change.
And Donald Trump and the Republican Party is what you're wanting to change.
Yes.
Donna, you're a pleasure. I'm glad you got in. The doors were closed right as you walked in the door. I'm going to let you go home. Donna, it's nice to meet you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you so much.
I appreciate you.
Okay, be safe.
All right. Now.
See ya.
And I thought this was a very interesting analysis right here from the Progressive Change Campaign Committee's co-founder, Adam Green. Here's how he puts it in perspective when he was on C-SPAN. And then I'm going to show you Abdul El-Sayed's speech that he gave before we or NBC could officially make the call. Abdul El-Sayed came out and gave a speech, but he essentially knew he was going to win when he gave the speech. But first, let me show you Adam Green.
Michigan is ground zero in the battle for the future of the Democratic Party. What we have here are two competing theories of the case for electability in the general election, and we consider this a chips on the table moment. One theory of the case, the Chuck Schumer theory of the case, is that the best way to be electable in the swing state is to have a status quo politician. In this case, Haley Stevens, Congresswoman, whose campaign is basically being bankrolled to the tune of $60 million by APAC, crypto, big insurance, big pharma, big energy companies. And for some reason, that's supposed to appeal to independent voters who don't like either political party and think they're both bought and paid for. Our alternative theory of the case is that Dr. Abdul El-Sayed is a shake-up-the-system economic fighter. People believe him when he says he wants to fight to get money out of politics, put money in people's pockets, and fight for Medicare for all. And we believe that that is the kind of message, especially in this outsider moment, that is needed to attract independent voters in November. So what we're seeing tonight is a Democratic Party referendum on that question. We believe that if Abdul El-Sayed defeats $60 million of outside spending, it will send a signal to every Democratic politician across the country that it is okay to cross very powerful interests because you can still win if the people are on your side. That is what is needed, especially at this moment as we're fighting Donald Trump. And then in November, when he wins this swing Senate seat, we hope it sends a really important message to some of the voters that you and I have both met on the campaign trail, scared, well-meaning electability voters who just don't want to mess things up in 2028 as they select a presidential contender in 27-28. And we hope that they realize, oh, it's okay to vote for someone inspiring. Because yes, you can have a former CIA operative named Alyssa Slotkin in a place like Michigan, but you can also have a guy named Abdul El-Sayed who is fighting for Medicare for all and fighting to shake up the system. So that is our goal with this race, and the stakes could not be higher.
Okay, now let me show you Abdul El-Sayed's victory speech, although he didn't fully know at the time that it was going to be called in the evening, as we've called it, as NBC's called it, as others have called it. But here's what El-Sayed had to say. Here, play this clip.
But I also want to speak to this moment. We've got 13 weeks to defeat Mike Rogers. And however we might feel about the campaign we've just come through, I want you to understand that it pales in comparison to the cynicism, in comparison to the corporatism, in comparison to the lies that Mike Rogers and Donald Trump are going to tell. There is so much more that unites us. However much we might disagree with our Democratic opponent, there is so much more that unites us than divides us. And so to all of our supporters here tonight, watching on TV, tomorrow we begin to mend fences. Whatever happens tonight, we have a responsibility to assure that we unite to make sure that Mike Rogers never sees the inside of the U.S. Senate. And I'm going to ask, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. And I'm going to ask all of us, as we think about where we go from here, always magnanimity in victory. So if your instinct is to be like, I told you, no. Let's come together to build a movement that's even bigger, that's even stronger, that's even more powerful, that reaches into the very depths of this state, that reminds us the best of who we are and who we can be. That is the commitment I want all of us to be making as we leave here tonight.
More from Abdul right here. Let's play it.
And because you had the audacity to believe in that, you know that the billionaires, the corporations, and the special interests, they weren't going to give up lightly. We all knew they were going to spend their money. We didn't know they were going to spend $70 million of their money. We didn't know that they were going to outspend us $11 to $1. And yet we're still standing. They want to tell us that here in Michigan, we're a purple state. That somehow everybody walks around wondering, I wonder where I stand on a left-right spectrum. When really, up and down the state, what you hear is, I wonder how I can afford my rent. I wonder how I can afford my groceries. I don't know what'll happen if I get sick because I can't afford my deductible. We are not a purple state. We are a state in need of a movement to take our politics back. And despite their spending, despite their lies told in ad after ad after ad after ad on TV, we're walking into the rest of this evening with a 3-point lead.
Now, I had the opportunity to interview Abdul El-Sayed early on in the election and right towards the beginning of Trump's catastrophic war. And we had a conversation about it. So it was about 4.5 months ago. Let's play this clip.
Ben, I appreciate you covering this and being as extensive in the coverage as you have been. This is an illegal, unjustified war, but somebody's got to pay for it. And that someone is us. We're paying for it to the tune of hundreds of billions of dollars and counting. Money that should be spent to provide for our own children here at home. You mentioned the destruction of a girls' school by an American missile. We paid for that missile that got dropped on those kids and dropped on their school. Now imagine what would happen if instead of dropping a missile on a school over there, we were dropping that same money into schools over here, or investing in our infrastructure, or addressing the fact that people can't afford their health care. There is an opportunity cost to war. Donald Trump has never had to actually pay for it. He's never put anything of himself on the line. So for him, this is just another day doing what Donald Trump does, which is enriching himself and his family at the cost of the American public. I just filled up my gas, and this should be the least of our worries. But think about this: $1 more per gallon of gas every single day that people have to fill up across this economy. It is increasing the price, not just at the gas pump, but I looked at diesel. That's $5 a gallon. Diesel is what powers our trucks. Diesel is what takes our foodstuffs into our grocery stores. You're going to feel that cost in our grocery stores. And so, talking about the destruction of people's lives over there, the destruction of our livelihoods here, all for what? So Trump and his goons can trade on the probability of stock markets that they're manipulating to make money from themselves while the rest of us pay. It is insane. It's wrong. It needs to stop. And we need to hold him and everybody who empowered this accountable.
And then we had part of our discussion on just the trying to recognize shared humanity and how MAGA just so cruelly treats human beings and how they are a death cult. Here, let's play it.
I'm a doctor by training, and there's something about medical training that reminds you that humans are visceral. We're real. We're flesh and blood. Our temperature is all the same. The way that skin feels, we all know that feeling. When you look in somebody's eyes, you know what that lights up inside of you. This administration is the most online administration we've ever seen. And there's something about the online world that I think decimates our foundational humanity. It makes us think that everything in the world is transacted via screens. When children are killed in their schools, those are real children's bodies that go cold. When we fail to provide people healthcare in this country, they die earlier. Those are loved ones that we'll never again get to see. And that is what's happening across the board. This gamification of this war, the kinds of memes that they're putting up there, they're meant to continue to draw upon the worst instincts of what an online fake simulacrum of reality is meant to make us think about everyday people who suffer the cost of this. And I think it's really important for all of us to remember our humanity in this. These are choices that are being made about real people, and they're being made at the cost of helping and protecting real people here at home. Real people pay the price of this. And so when we hold our mother's hand and look in the eyes of our grandparents and cuddle our children, just remember that that is the same human emotion that we ought to be thinking about every single time this administration drops a bomb or empowers a foreign government to drop bombs or fails to provide for our own kids or our families here at home. That humanity is what suffers. And we need a politics that reminds us that people are at the heart of what our government ought to be about empowering. We need to be spending our money here at home to make sure our people can afford healthcare and our kids can go to good schools and we can breathe clean air and drink clean water. And at the same time, we also need to make sure that our tax dollars are not being used to devastate the lives and livelihoods of people abroad. That's what we're trying to build in this movement here in Michigan, a politics of people, by people, for people, rather than of special interests and corporations and for them. And because that's unfortunately what's led us into this mess. Make no mistake, this war is, yes, Donald Trump's to own, but it was pushed by a number of special interests who make a lot off of this. Whether you're talking about the weapons manufacturers who are making money hand over fist off this war, or you're talking about AIPAC, a MAGA-funded special interest group that is meant to align our interests with the interests of a foreign government abroad. We don't benefit, but there are people who do, and we've got to make sure that those folks have less power in our government. Otherwise, that humanity that you're talking about is going to continue to be forgotten in the public policy that we push.
So there you have it, folks. Abdul El-Sayed will go on to win the Michigan Democratic primary, defeating his opponent, Haley Stevens. You saw the Mallory McMorrow endorsement of Abdul El-Sayed right there. Congratulations, Abdul. It was great to have him on early on. And as he said, it is a time to unite. It is a time to bring people together. It is a time to fight against the fascist threat coming from these MAGA extremists. You got Mike Rogers, a MAGA Republican extremist who, frankly, in my opinion, hates the state of Michigan. He hates the people of Michigan, and he will enact more of Trump's agenda that kills the people of Michigan. And I just think it's that simple, in my opinion. Hit subscribe. Thanks for watching. We appreciate you.
Hey, if you want the full story, how democracy got here and how we take it back, pre-order our new book, WTF America, today. Just scan the QR code or click the link in the description. Let's do this.